How well do you sleep at night? How do you know? Did you know that a lack of sleep can be making you fat and sick? In today's video, The Science of Sleep and How to Sleep Better, I'm going to share with you some tips on how to get a good night's sleep based on what the science says, but also based on what our ancestors did in connection with Mother Nature. I will share sleep tips that you can do right away. And this is something that will help with improving your metabolism, to reset your immune system, which is so important, especially these days in our global climate and what's happening, as well as healing and detoxifying your organs as you sleep, helping to improve your memory and even to make you look younger. So stay tuned right until the end of the video. Today I have some really special things that are happening. So I'm going to share a visualization to help to have that restful night's sleep. And today we also have a bonus, and the bonus is 7 ways to burn more fat while sleeping. So I know you're going to want to stay tuned right until the end. If you're new to my channel, I'm Dr. Janine. Welcome. Great to have you here. Be sure to subscribe and also turn on those notifications by clicking that bell so you always get my newest and latest uploads. As I said, I'm Dr. Janine Bowring, and this is the Dr. Janine Show. I'm a best-selling author, a mother of 5, naturopathic doctor, and a medical researcher. I'm also a TV personality. I've been doing this for a while, so it's so fun to be able to engage with you live, one-on-one. I love your questions and comments, so please do leave them below. And also, if you've got future ideas for future shows, I'd love to hear from you. I love that dialogue that we have, and give me a big thumbs up on this video as well. Remember, stay tuned to the end because that bonus is something you're not going to want to miss. So what does a good night's sleep look like? When we talk about the science of sleep and how to sleep better, what is a good night's sleep? And ideally, what we want is we want to fall asleep within 10 to 20 minutes max of putting our head on that pillow. And yes, sleeping reclined is very important. It has to do with our brain chemistry and everything that's happening with our cerebral spinal fluid and electron flow. So this is something that's important. We want to be in that horizontal position, and that's why we lie down to sleep. But yeah, ask yourself, are you falling asleep within 10 to 20 minutes? This may be a challenge for a lot of you, and that's why I want you to pay attention to everything that I'm discussing today, because it's so important to have that restful night's sleep. And okay, there's debate on how many hours of sleep. So you may have heard 8 hours of sleep is the standard. Well, the science shows that, yeah, 7 to 8 hours is best to get that restful night's sleep. And this does, though, depend on where you live in the world. So if you live closer to the equator, then that would be different for someone who's living, where we do here in Canada, with those longer winters and the longer dark period of the day. We actually need a little bit more sleep than someone who has more sunlight in their daily life. Now, this is interesting. A study has shown that too much sleep is actually bad for you. So you can overdo it, and this could work against you. So in this study, the preliminary results showed, and this was the largest sleep study, that if you're sleeping between 7 and 8 hours per night, this was better for cognition. And if you had too much less, but also if you had too much more than those 8 hours, this could actually work against you in terms of your cognitive abilities. So that was out of here in Ontario, University of Western. My dad went to Western University, so right here in Canada, and that's, again, the biggest sleep study, so that was fantastic to get that type of information right from our fellow Canadians. And again, when we wake up in the morning, we should wake refreshed, and that's a good indicator that you've had that restful night's sleep. So this is important, and without an alarm clock. So that is another thing that we'll touch upon a little bit later in the show. So what are the benefits of a good night's sleep? So there is this false notion that, sleep is for rest and relaxation, but actually there's a lot happening when we're sleeping. Sleep is very restorative. And, a great example, when you go to the grocery store and the store closes at 5 p.m., that's the end of the day. Well, it's not. Actually, most most of the work is happening in the hours after the store closes, think about cleaning up. Think about restocking the shelves, what the staff has to do in terms of sanitizing that entire store, especially these days with everything happening with COVID. So that's the same as sleep. After, we hit our head on that pillow when we fall asleep, there is so much happening in our physiology that you would not believe. And that's everything that I'm sharing today. And that's why hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll really appreciate why you need to have that restful night's sleep. This is, when our proper metabolism is happening and the ability to burn off that extra body fat that we don't need. Maybe we accumulated a little bit during the day, but we're supposed to burn it off as we sleep. And that's why stay tuned for the bonus, because I'm going to tell you exactly how to maximize those benefits of that sleep for that fat burning. Also, this is when our tissues regenerate. This is when our healing happens. And this happens only when we have that restful, deep sleep. Also, when you talk about memory and committing everything that's happened during the day to memory, this is important that we get that restful night's sleep. And research has shown that Alzheimer's disease is definitely linked to that lack of that proper sleep. And this happens in the hippocampus of the brain. So this is part of the brain that we've discussed before. So really important to, again, have that proper sleep, and that's why all the tips in today's video will help you with that. Also, as well as immune system. So why do we sleep? I look at my kids when they're, when they're sick, they sleep a lot. And this is a tip as well, that, as adults, when we get sick, we need to sleep. And often I'm guilty of this, in the past, that I would just push through. I have to get to work. I have to do this. I have to do this. No, when you're sick, you have to sleep, because that's when your body is repairing itself. That's when the healing takes place. So you have to take that time for yourself. If you do fall ill with something, that you get that restful night's sleep. Also, anti-aging. So something called autophagy and mitophagy happens when we're sleeping. This is something that I've discussed in previous videos. This is our body's cleanup mechanism. This is when we need to, make sure that our cells are actually recycling our proteins. They get rid of the bad stuff that we don't need. And this happens mostly during sleep. So whether it's in the mitochondria, that's the mitophagy, or autophagy happens in our organ systems, happens when we sleep. So this is part of longevity. And if I've, interviewed centenarians, and that's one of those mainstays, is that they get that full restful night's sleep, and no wonder they can live into their hundreds and in a healthy way. So that's really incredible as well. And it also, when we're sleeping, helps to improve the diversity of our microbiome. So our microbiome is that healthy gut flora. And it's been studied that in some of the aged that were very healthy, so, people in their 90s, when they compared the diversity of their microbiome, it was much like that of a 30-year-old. And these were healthy people, much like the centenarians, living well into their, later years, but in a healthy way. And it had a lot to do with that microbiome health and getting that restful night's sleep. So what happens when we sleep? Well, this is the physiology behind what's happening. So this actually starts in the morning. Yes, so we always think about nighttime sleep. No, this happens in morning, and that's why when I talk about the tips, you'll understand and you'll appreciate why it's so important to have that morning light exposure. Seeing that sunrise is one of the simplest, it's the cheapest thing that you can do. Find that sun in the east in the morning, look at that sun. And this is so important because this offsets what's happening with your entire circadian rhythm. There's melatonin that's secreted in your eyes, and it's produced in your eyes. It has a relationship to DHA, which we know from fish oil is really important. It has to do with water, and it has to do with something called melanopsin. So when that blue light from the sun, which is healthy, hits your eyes, gets into your pineal gland, from those red rays from the sun as well, penetrates into your skull to that pineal gland. This is so important to offset our entire body and for the body clock. So there's something called the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and this is the melanopsin is what's stimulating that SCN to start off that entire process of your biochemistry for the entire day. So what happens at nighttime when you're sleeping, depends on what you did in the morning. So a lot of people don't realize this. As well as melanopsin also regulates our blood glucose. So this is why in our previous show when I talked about leptin and why sleep is important, leptin resistance, if you've missed that show, please check it out after you've seen this program today. You've got to check out that video on leptin resistance. This is the missing link for so many people when it comes to immunity, when it comes to weight loss, and it really ties into our circadian rhythms and why it's so important that we get that morning sunshine. But some of the other tips in today's video are going to put all of this information together for you so that you really find the balance when it comes to, resolving the leptin resistance. So I want to have, some shout outs to Anne, Casey, Marie. Hello, everybody who's watching. Thank you for tuning in. Great to have you here. Please be leaving your questions and comments. I've got my whole team here. You just see me on the screen, but I have a whole team. They're behind the scenes. They're feeding me the questions, so I'd love to hear from you if you've got questions as we go along throughout the show. It's great, and it makes for a fun show, and I love to interact with you. So please send your questions in. My team will send them to me, and I'll read them out. So let's get back to the melanopsin. It also creates an action potential. So this is, as much as it has to do with light, it also has to do with energy, and it has to do with moving electrons and things. So I'm not going to get into all of the physiology here, but this then activates our hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus then is in tune with the pineal gland, and the pineal gland, this is where you've heard about your melatonin secretion, and this is important that our pineal gland is actually creating that melatonin, but again, the melatonin will be secreted at night, and there's certain factors that are important for that to happen appropriately, which we're going to get to in just a second. But certainly, if you want to get into all of the geekiness and the physiology, please refer to Dr. Jack Kruse. And I've been reading his blogs for months now, and I still am so enthralled with the information. So if you really want to look and learn more in depth about the physiology and the physics and the quantum mechanics behind all of this, check out Dr. Jack Kruse, because he has a wealth of information. And this is, it's not surprising that our ancestors knew to look at that early morning sun. Now, what's newer in the research is the whole connection with leptin and why it's so important that, we get all of these things under control to help to regulate our metabolism and our energy and our immune system. And that's why sleep is so important. So I touched upon the pineal gland, and the pineal gland is so interesting because it's actually lights up. It's bioluminescent. So when you see those fish that swim in the ocean or those organisms that light up, well, the pineal gland is actually bioluminescent, and that is about the size of a raisin, and it's in the middle part of our brain, which we saw there, and it has something interesting in it. It has some calcite microcrystals. So, and crystal, it comes from the Greek word kristallos, and which means frozen light. And I just find that all these connections really are so super cool that our pineal gland, which is of course where our melatonin is secreted, is also important because it senses gravitational fields because of this crystal that is in there and the calcite microcrystals. It's also like our wireless transmitter, and this becomes really important when I talk about the tips and how we can make sure that we're taking care and keeping our pineal gland healthy, because remember, we've got like our own wireless transmitter that also is, helping to control our space and where we are in the world in terms of gravity and, the electromagnetism around us from the earth itself. So that's really important. But also it's said that the pineal gland, and think about it, the third eye, also known as the third eye, is known to connect with higher frequencies and also other spiritual worlds. So this is, in the history, which I won't go into, but I was reading about the pineal gland and it was in Egyptian mythology and in the Vatican. Like, there's so many and so much symbology around the pineal gland, which is something that we'll definitely share in a post. So make sure that you're following me on Instagram, because we're going to share that information with you there. But also, let's now talk about the different stages of sleep and why it's so important that we have that restful night's sleep. So our brain is doing different things depending on where we are in our sleep cycle. So we can see that, during the day with the beta waves, this is alertness, this is when we can concentrate, this is the time when we're awake. And then we can go into the alpha waves and things start to slow down a little bit. And this is when we are relaxed and we can do the visualizations. This is when we're more creative. We also have the theta waves, and you can see the different frequencies. And this becomes important if you will appreciate some of what I'm sharing at the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And we'll also share a link to some great music that you can listen to that we've actually created. So, and it's at a specific hertz, a specific frequency to get you into that relaxed state, and it's using binaural beats. So ideally you're using it with headphones, not wireless headphones, because you know how I feel about the EMF, so check out that show. But with headphones that you can use to help to relax you. So whether you use it for sleep and inducing sleep, but you can also use it for meditation. And we're using the binaural beats, which we'll get to in just a second. So if you're just tuning in, thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Janine Bowring, and today I'm talking about the science of sleep and how to sleep better. And, be sure that you're following me, because I've got stories happening now on YouTube as well. So check those out and check me out on the other social platforms. Also, when we're talking about, not being able to fall asleep, there's different things happening according to traditional Chinese medicine. And for instance, if you can't fall asleep, so you've got insomnia, it's 11 o'clock, remember going to bed, and my recommendation is going to bed, 10 p.m. max for most people. We'll get to the larks and the owls in just a second, but for most people around 10 p.m. is ideally, according to Chinese medicine, that you fall asleep. Now, if you've got that insomnia, you're not able to fall asleep, and it's going on 11 p.m., it could be because your endocrine system is overactive, and that could be because of stress and your cortisol levels. So this is something that, in traditional Chinese medicine, they've actually mapped out, and it's very close to our circadian biology as to what's happening when. So let's say you go to bed at 10 p.m., which is great. Then between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., this is when the gallbladder is very active, and if you've had a lot of unhealthy fats in the day, that you could be waking up between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. because your gallbladder is having some difficulty. The gallbladder is also related to courage in Chinese medicine, and if you are judgmental or have judgmental sort of aspects of, your personality, then this could be your sleep not sleeping time between 11 and 1 p.m. So again, food for thought. This is something that I really want you to think about. If you consistently, and most people who have insomnia, though, you will consistently wake up at a certain hour of the day, then, pay attention to some of these things. It's something that you can refer back to when you rewatch this video. Between 1 and 3 a.m. has to do with the liver, and this is clearing toxins time. It has to do with digestion and hormones. Unresolved anger is a possibility here too, in terms of the psycho, emotional aspect of the liver. So a lot of anger would be, waking up at this time. Between 3 and 5 a.m., this is when the lungs are active. So if there's any, locked in sadness or grief from something that's happened in the past, this could be the time of the early morning that you're waking up and simply you can't sleep, and that could be related to the lungs, but also to breathing. So some people will wake up at this time and they'll actually have a cough, and that's, again, the lungs are trying to clear those toxins that are there. Between 5 and 7 a.m., this is the large intestine, and so undigested toxic load that's in the bowel could be related to this, as well as not being able to let things go. So if you're that person who just emotionally can't let things go easily, this could be the time that you're waking up. So really interesting information and something that you can refer to, because when I used to work with my patients, this was something that I would always, oh, how's your sleep? Was one of our, my top questions. How's your sleep? How are you doing? And, I would then zone in and we would be able to see what organ system we would need to be targeting in terms of whether it was detoxification or maybe the mental emotional, the anger with the liver. I could zero in. And that's why, these shows, I love sharing this information with you, because I don't see patients any longer, but I believe that, we're able to share this information via the Dr. Janine show. So please share this video as well with your friends, because this could be such a game changer for their sleep as well. I have some more shout outs. Hello to Debbie. Hi, Brock. Thanks for tuning in. It's so great that you're here. And a big thank you from Debbie. And oh my goodness. Oh, a testimonial. Thank you, Debbie. I'm going to read it out. Everybody's good with this. So Debbie has said, I have put my sleeping pills aside and use your calcium at bedtime for a wonderful, restful sleep. Cannot believe I sleep without reawakening all through the night with calcium. What a wonderful product. Thank you so much, Debbie. That's fantastic that you shared that story. I'm going to be talking about calcium and magnesium in just a second, so please stay tuned, everyone. If you're not sure, what Debbie is referring to, I'm going to enlighten you on that. Also, I have, this is a big question. So this is from Brock. With all this craziness happening lately after watching the news, I get scared most times and I can't fall asleep. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Is there anything you can suggest to help? So yes, tip number 1, don't watch the news, especially when you're going to bed. And that's going to come up in all of my tips closer to the end of the show. But yeah, watching anything that's going to have a negative impact, Brock, on the way that you're feeling, in terms of emotionally, spiritually, if it's not good for you, it's not good for you. So stop doing it. And I know it's so enticing that, people are watching the news all the time and it's on, and it's not meant to be on. It's meant to be on for a period of time. You get your information and you turn it off. So you've heard me say this in other shows before. So yeah, just really limit your inputs as to what you are inundating your body with in terms of, your environment. And that's some of the things, the tips that I'll talk about in terms of getting that good night's sleep. Now let's move on with the topic. So why can't I sleep? So causes of sleep deprivation, what are they? Well, let's talk about the earth. Let's talk about something called non-native EMFs. So native EMFs, electromagnetic fields, these exist in the earth, living on the earth's surface, and the native EMFs are there for a reason, but it's the non-native EMFs that are the problem, because they mess up our memory. They have a negative impact on those crystals that I was talking about, so the calcite crystals in the pineal gland. So all of these exposures that we have to this radiation around us, whether it's from cell phones, from 5G, from our computers, the laptop sitting on your lap is the worst place for a laptop, let me just say, guys and girls, because this is like, causing infertility on the spot. It's zapping you and it's not healthy for you. So if you do use a laptop, please make sure it is away from you. Check out my whole show on EMFs and you'll learn all about, how to mitigate the risks of EMFs. Another cause of why maybe you're not sleeping is that artificial blue light. And this is the worst, with adults, yes, but I find with teenagers, and it's something that I'm pretty strict about in my house, put the phones away at least a couple hours before bedtime, because that blue light, again, remember we talked about the melanopsin in the eye, it's a blue light photoreceptor. It's supposed to wake you up in the morning when you see those blue light rays from the sun. And this is a big thing. If we have all that blue light exposure in our eyes at nighttime, that means no melatonin. That means no sleep. So please turn off those devices. There are things that you can, glasses that you can wear to protect yourself, but that's not a substitute for just putting it away. So I've been really good at keeping my phone away from my bed. I charge it in another room overnight, and it's not in the bedroom. So that's a really important thing that you can do, and you can start that today. Also stress. So, we talked, Brock had the question about stress. Stay tuned for more tips on how to deal with stress, but stress is a big thing. So you want to limit your inputs in terms of that stress causing your sleep deprivation. Now, how does diet affect the sleep? Well, here's the thing. If you're eating late, what happens is that this lights up your digestive tract, and especially your microbiome. So your microbiome actually gives off light, and that light in your microbiome is going to be a problem for your serotonin conversion into melatonin. Melatonin only is active and helps your body for sleep in a dark state. So you don't want to be lighting up your gut close to bedtime, especially with carbohydrates. Not a good thing, so you have to really watch those carbs, especially before bed, and stop eating at a certain time, which I'll get to in just a second. Also, lack of exercise affects our sleep. So exercise, I mean, think of yourself. When you've had some good exercise, you know, it tires you out. If you're sort of that couch potato and you're not getting that active exercise, then you really haven't expended your energy for the day, and no wonder you can't sleep at night. So a little bit of exercise is always good and helpful. As well as shift work. So shift work, this was, you know, shocking for me to learn that a few years ago it was actually deemed a probable carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. So not a good thing, and that's a pretty bold statement in terms of, you know, if you have to work at night, that it could be raising your cancer risk. So yeah, I'm not saying that everybody can change their shift work, but if you have the opportunity, if you have the choice to choose between working at night and working within our normal daylight cycle here on Earth, then I would say definitely make that choice to work in, you know, when the sun is up during the day and we sleep when it's dark. So let's talk again about the pineal gland. So this could be if your pineal gland becomes calcified. So remember, we have those little calcite crystals in the pineal gland, which is important for our gravitational relationship to where we are in the world. But if there is a lot of fluoride in your system, so this could be in drinking water, it could also be from fluoridated toothpaste, that, you know, the research has shown in this study that a fluoride-free diet actually stimulates the pineal growth in aged male rats. So what does that say? So better pineal function, bigger pineal gland, more melatonin, better sleep. So this, again, is another tip, is to watch your intake of fluoride in the body, which is so important. And also lack of DHA could be another cause. So the more further away you live from the equator, the more DHA you need in terms of being able to convert that sunlight, so that early morning sunlight, which of course we need to turn on and activate all of our systems in terms of our melatonin at night as well. But that melatonin in the eye is what activates the rest of the brain, so that's important as well. So yeah, we want to make sure that we are, you know, tuning into that. And that's something that's simple that we can do every day. So what happens to your body and your brain if you don't get enough sleep? So of course the no-brainer is fatigue. You simply do not have energy during the day, and this would be another, you know, reason why it's so important to make sure that you're taking care of your energy levels during the day by getting that restful night's sleep. And, you know, your mood as well, definitely. I don't know about you, or I look at my kids again, or my husband, not enough sleep, very cranky people. Not a good situation. So, you know, you can become more irritable and frustrated if you are lacking in sleep. And it does, you know, it has its toll on our mental emotional health. And, you know, it can go as far as, with lack of sleep, as far as delusions, paranoia, and even having less empathy for people when you are lacking in sleep. So important that, yes, we are taking care of this and doing our best to get that restful night's sleep. But also, hormonal imbalance definitely is related to sleep. So ladies, if you're perimenopausal, menopausal, that is a big factor as well, that you're getting that sleep. and cardiovascular events. So you may have heard of this before, but something that, in my opinion, is one of the worst things that we have is the daylight savings time. So 70 countries worldwide go through this daylight savings time, and it is, in the statistics, it has shown that absolutely in the spring, so when we are losing that 1 hour of sleep, there is 24% increase in heart attacks. Now in the fall, when we gain an hour of sleep, there's a decrease by 21% in heart attacks. And what does that show you? It shows you in the statistics, it's showing that that lack of sleep, just 1 hour, has such a significant impact on cardiovascular events, but also car crashes and things like that. So that's something we'll get to in just a second. Absolutely, we have to, and we know, I mean, myself included, I hate that change, when we change the clocks, that completely offsets my entire body. So I have some more shout outs. Hello to Yusuf. Hello, new Kat Harvinder. Hello. Welcome again. Thank you. I know that you love to watch the shows. Obaro is tuning in, and Kathy, thanks for the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Love that. And I hope you're sharing this with all your friends. It really, it means a lot to me for us to be able to put on these shows week after week. A lot of energy and time goes into putting together all the research for these. So I really appreciate all of your feedback and that you're sharing this with all of your friends and your family members. It's fantastic, and I love those thumbs up. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. So again, when we talk about what's happening with your body and your brain when you're not getting enough sleep, is that, again, your productivity goes down. Your immune system also becomes compromised, and in our immune system, you can simply get sick more often. This affects our natural killer cells, and they decrease by 70% activity in our natural killer cells with just 4 hours of sleep. So let's say you've got 4 hours of sleep, you think, oh yeah, at least I got my 4 hours of sleep. No, decrease in your immunity in your natural killer cells by 70%. That's a huge number. So that's why we need to sleep, especially when we're sick. Also, insulin resistance. So this is something that we talked about a little bit when we talk about weight gain and leptin resistance. We need that active sleep to be able to, balance our insulin and to be able to burn off that fat when we're sleeping, as well as autophagy. So if you've got inflammation and you've got pain, then when we're sleeping, this is our body's cleanup mechanism, and this is why it's so important that we sleep, because it helps our body go into autophagy and mitophagy as well, so the cleanup of our mitochondrial cells, which are energy producing cells. So if you're chronically in pain and you're chronically inflamed, this has a lot to do with, not getting into that proper autophagy, that Pac-Man that cleans up, your system and recycles your proteins. Your body becomes less efficient at being able to do that. Also, accidents. So remember those stats on the cardiovascular disease. When we change those clocks, when you're lacking in sleep, then you are absolutely more prone to those accidents, which is something we definitely want to prevent as much as possible, as well as decreased fertility and not being able to conceive is related to lack of sleep, and also decreased memory and brain function. So again, when we talk about sleep, there's so much happening when we're sleeping that, and getting that active night, sleep happening. And I say active sleep because there's so much happening that, when our conscious minds go to sleep, there's so much happening in our body, in our brain, that it's so important. We can't overlook sleep as an integral part of our overall health. So now we're getting to the nitty-gritty, how to fall asleep fast when you can't sleep. So these are the tips. So my first tip is looking at the sun, and it's called sun gazing. First thing in the morning, so between sunrise and about 10 a.m., you want to make sure that you look to the east, you see that sun, you want to activate that melanopsin, which is that blue light photoreceptor in the eyes. You want to start making that melatonin in the eyes first, and then that's going to offset your entire circadian rhythm to activate your brain, activate your pineal gland, so that it can actually secrete its melatonin when you're sleeping late at night. So this is really important. So look at that that sun, even on a cloudy day. So I get that question often, even with my kids every morning before school. I make them look, especially with their pineal gland, look at the sun and do that, because it's important that you are setting up your day in the right way for all of your hormones in your body and for the weight loss as well. So stay tuned, because the bonus is coming up at the end of the video about how to burn that fat while we're sleeping. So tip number 2 is have a good environment. So this is called sleep hygiene, and you want to ideally have a colder temperature when you're sleeping. You want to turn down that room temperature in your room to about 68, between 68 and 70 degrees. Might be a little bit even too warm. Some research that I read at 65 degrees to really cool your temperature. That will help with your melatonin. Your melatonin is secreted when you're sleeping in that cooler environment. If it is too hot, you're not going to secrete your melatonin, and this will disrupt your sleep. So that's important. Also, decreasing those blue light radiation. So you want to turn off your lights. You want to have amber light, or red light closer to bedtime. And this was shown in a study to really have a positive impact on our melatonin levels, and that our evening home lighting adversely impacts our circadian system and our sleep, and they found in the study that melatonin secretion can be suppressed by as much as 50%. And this is just using LED light bulbs. So I cannot stand it. And my intuition is really, if you heard Dr. Sinatra in our previous episode, I loved it when he talked about women's intuition, and he talked about, heart health. And so check out that whole video that, I had a great dialogue with Stephen Sinatra, who did, so much research on CoQ10 and the heart. So if you're not yet seen that, make sure you check that out. But one of the things that I loved is he talked about women's intuition. And so as soon as my husband started bringing home these LED bulbs in the house, I was not a happy person, and I let him know, and I still continue to let him know that those LED bulbs are not good for your health. And I was right. I didn't know the research at the time when we started putting them in, but there just was something so wrong, especially the ones that were very white or even a blue tinge to them. They were driving me nuts, and so we had to change things around a little bit, but we're still improving. So this is something the research absolutely shows, as we saw in that study, that you can, when you have more time, you can check that out, that exposure to that light in our homes is terrible for our melatonin. So basically, when the sun goes down, our lights should go down. Fire and flame, so candles, is the ultimate way to go. I know we can't always do that, but food for thought, especially if you have difficulty sleeping or you're suffering through a certain disease. You want to make sure that you have more of that amber, that red light, and that infrared, the heat from a flame, is really important for our melatonin as well. As well as grounding. So sleep hygiene, you want to be grounded as much as possible, and you can do that in the day. Try to sleep grounded. I actually purchased a mat that I sleep grounded. It's under my sheet, and that is something that's fantastic as well. And you can use some essential oils. So you can use them in the bedroom. And this is something that I do for the kids, but I do it for myself as well. So essential oils of lavender, pine, frankincense, and sandalwood are all fantastic for helping to calm down the nervous system and to really have that restful night's sleep. Tip number 3 is diet. So I touched upon this before. You want to lower your carbohydrates. You don't want to eat, especially if you can, after 6 p.m. And this depends on the time of year and where you live, at the latitude of where you live, but not eating after 6 p.m. is super important. You want to allow for your insulin levels to come down, and because your melatonin can only be secreted for sleep when your insulin is low. So especially carbohydrates, it's going to spike everything up, and this is something that's important not to eat. So finish your eating window stops around 6 or 7 p.m. That can stretch a little bit longer in the summertime, but for now in our dark winter here in Canada, that you want to stop eating at 6 p.m. Tip number 4 is exercise. So exercise helps our BDNF. So refer to our previous episode, depression. You are not depressed, it's in your gut. This is important when we talk about BDNF, and BDNF with melatonin and as well as progesterone helps to make sure that our memories are, and what happens to us in the day is actually committed to our memory and to our memory bank. And this happens while we sleep. So as much as we think is, sleep is that restful time, not so much. A lot is happening. As I said before, those memories are actually committed to our sleep and into our brain and into our memory when we are sleeping. Now, tip number 5 is cold temperatures. So again, we want to get cold. So between 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit is ideally your sleep temperature in your ambient environment around you. But there's also things that you can do to help to get your body colder closer to bedtime. So whether it's the cold showers, the ice face dunk, we're going to be posting that as a challenge again on our Instagram. If you missed that episode, you can check that out. But this is important as well for that restful night's sleep. You want to cool your body temperature. Tip number 6 is sound. So I want you to check out. So after today's visualization, we also have a full 1 hour and a bit video that I share, the Doctor Janine binaural beats meditation for good sleep. And this is something that ideally you're listening to with headphones. Binaural beats, they will be working with your brain and helps to relax your nervous system. It's incredible for sleep. And it's funny because when we were actually putting the beats together and I had it on and I was getting drowsy at my desk because I was listening to them, it really does work. It's incredible. Until you experience it, you're not, and I want you to use it. I mean, if this is a great way to relax your nervous system, use it every single night. You're going to put on that video in YouTube, put on your earphones, and just, allow your body to relax and listen to the beautiful music. If you need to calm down during the day, you can use it as well. We put some great visuals together, and you'll see and you'll appreciate that. And we have more coming out but it's very specific. It's fine-tuned in that meditation. It's fine-tuned to the right hertz, the frequency that allows for that sleep to happen and to help those delta brain waves for that relaxing state. Tip number 7 is to journal before bed. So you can actually, write down all those thoughts, the good ones, the bad, and the ugly before bed. And this is something that I always did with my patients if they couldn't sleep, to really get it out of your system. And this is something that, make sure you're following me at Dr. Janine on Instagram. This is something that I'll be sharing there too as a post, and where I'm going to give you a checklist of things to check off, so that once you check off your list, you put your list aside and then you can fall asleep, because now your brain doesn't have to process these things as you're sleeping. You kind of get it off, away from your system, and you can have that restful night's sleep. Tip number 8 is to use crystals. So crystals, specifically amethyst and calcite. So this is amethyst, a beautiful crystal, and calcite, you can use geodes and things in your sleeping environment, and they work with the Earth's gravitational pull. They also are said to have an impact on those calcite crystals in your pineal gland, which again is related to our melatonin and our relationship with the Earth. So those are great tips. Again, if you're a crystal person, then have these ones in your bedroom to help with sleep. Now, tip number 9 is if you wake up. So some people, when you wake up, you don't get up, you stay in your room, and you don't want to connect that, not sleeping with being in your bed. If you wake up, get up, move around, go to another room, and then when you get drowsy again, then you come back to bed. You don't want to have that negative association with your bed and not being able to sleep. Tip number 10 is, this is interesting, is that you've got to follow who you are. So we have owls. About 50% of the population are owls. The night owls, you stay up later, like my husband, or the larks, the early morning bird who gets the worm. That's me. So again, 50% of the population is one or the other. So work with your own biorhythms. I'm not saying, that everybody has to go to bed at 10 p.m. If you are that later person, just make sure that you're getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep and you're following your own biorhythms. But, interesting to note that. Tip number 11 is to get that morning sun. So yes, I've said it probably 3, 4, 5 times throughout this video. It is incredible how this really does make sure that that early melatonin is starting to happen in the eyes themselves, but then that is that later cascade for all the hormones in your body and even your fat burning. So that's important when we're talking about leptin. And when we get to the bonus at the end of this video, you're going to appreciate why that's so important. Now, supplements. So we had Debbie I think it was Debbie was commenting, yes, on taking her calcium. So calcium is something that we take at bedtime, and this goes against the, magnesium that everybody says take magnesium at bedtime. It relaxes you. I always say magnesium in the morning to help with your vitamin D absorption as well as your DHA, and to get that melatonin going and get your circadian rhythms going. Your magnesium in the morning, MM, and your calcium at night. And it's incredible how this will have that impact on your sleep. I notice with dreams, you have that more, vivid dreams, which means you're getting into that REM sleep, which is important. But also they help to decrease that fluoride absorption. So remember when I talked about the calcification of your pineal gland, not a good thing. This is something that when we talk about these minerals, calcium, magnesium, they actually are helping to take that fluoride out of your pineal, and that's important for your proper melatonin secretion. And tip number 13 is meditation. So we're going to get to my own visualization right now, but important even on your own is to be doing meditation. Get into that relaxed state, your parasympathetic nervous system, so you can really fully relax and enjoy that restful sleep, because that allows you to tune in again to something that's greater than ourselves, tuning into that universal energy, that universal wisdom, Mother Nature, into the center of the earth, and with grounding as well. And it really can do, wonders for you and for your sleep. More shout outs. Hi, Robbie. Hi, Marlise and Nikhil. Thank you for tuning in. So great to have you here. Great question. Okay, we're going to get to the healing visualization, so don't go anywhere. I'm going to get to that in just a second. A question from Anne. Oh, I love this question. So, should I wear sunglasses or not? Here's the thing. No. You don't. Now, of course, if you're going to be on a ski hill, if you're going to be out and the sun is glaring, or you're driving and it's not safe, you can't see without your sunglasses, of course you're going to put them on. But as much as you can take the sunglasses off, and this is something that I've changed in my own life in the last 4 to 5 months, I did not wear sunglasses, and it was incredible what it did for my own energy levels, for my sleep later in the day, for my own hormones, and this is something that it is life-changing. So yeah, ditch the sunglasses. Great question. Thank you, Anne. Now, from Casey, do you have any suggestions about how I can reduce my anxiety and fall asleep faster? Yes, continue right now to stay tuned, because I want you to use this visualization. It's something that you can come back to. I'm going to guide you through and sort of allow you to connect. So sometimes in our daily lives, we're running around, if you're type A personality, you've got anxiety, you're inundated with everything that's happening in the world right now, or just daily life. I mean, it can get us down and we can get so freaked out, and you're not alone. And it's something that I want you to know, that we are all in this, to help each other, and that's why I love this forum, that I'm able to interact with you and to help you. But when it comes to anxiety, yeah, we've got to sort of tune into something that's greater than ourselves. And when we do that, we're able now to really get perspective on everything that's happening. So let's go through the visualization. The first thing that's really important, and I don't always say this when we go into visualizations, is to get yourself centered. And what that means is, if your legs are crossed, if you're up on the couch, it's really important to connect your feet with the earth. So you guys can't see my feet, but I'm going to put my feet on the ground. So wherever you are, ideally, you do not have rubber-soled shoes on, as I do right now in our snowy Monday morning here in Ontario, but you want to connect. So ideally bare feet or socks or leather-soled moccasins or shoes is best, and you're going to connect with the earth. And by having both feet centered and on the ground, if you're sitting cross-legged, even if you're lying down, you can do this as well. And just focusing in on my voice, we're going to close our eyes and take a few deep breaths. And breathing in fully into our lungs, allowing that air to come in to the entirety of our lungs, holding it for just a few seconds at the top of the breath after the inhale, and then allowing it just to escape our lungs gently. Now what's really important here is we're going to give thanks. Giving thanks for where we are in our lives. Giving thanks even to our struggles. And everything that we have, everything that we're experiencing right in this moment is exactly where we're supposed to be. And having faith in the fact that being here in this moment is teaching us something for our greater good. Whether we can see and appreciate whatever that is in this moment or not. And allowing our entire body to completely relax and melt into our current place. Breathing in, breathing out. With full appreciation. Next slide. And opening our eyes gently. Welcome you back. So that's something that you can go back to. And if you're just tuning in, I'm talking about the science of sleep and how to sleep better. If you just tuned in now, you had no idea what was happening. That's, a guided visualization that I shared. It's something that you can refer back to because, of course, this show will be archived and you'll be able to come back to it whether you're on Facebook, if you're tuning in from YouTube. So great to have you here and thanks for joining me today. But that was something that, is something that you can do. And again, I referred, and you'll have all the links below in the description of this video as to my full 1 hour meditation of the music with the binaural beats that you can use at any time. And I want you to use it every night when you're going to sleep. Listen to the binaural beats with this very specific frequency of music to help you to relax and have that restful night's sleep. I can't wait to hear from all of you how it's working for you, because it really is a game changer. Not only will you look younger, you're going to feel better, digestion improves, and again, I promise I'm getting to my bonus section on this show today about how to burn that fat while we're sleeping. So let's get to it right now. This is it. This is what you've been waiting for. How to burn fat. So tip number 1, you want to maximize that fat burning when you're sleeping. Tip number 1 is to make sure that your melatonin secretion is where it should be. And remember, this happens first thing in the morning. So you've got to get that early morning sun. You have to look at that sunrise. Simple as it sounds, look at that sunrise. Even on a cloudy day, even if you live in Canada as I do your best to expose as much of your body. So even your microbiome. So I hope my neighbors aren't watching, but what I do is I open up the garage doors and I open up my shirt and I expose my belly, or as much as, and pull up my sleeves in that early morning sun. In the morning, where hopefully nobody can see me, to be able to get as much of that sunlight on my body, especially on those beautiful sunny days. Yes, it's cold, but we've got to do it. So that's, tip number 1. Also decreasing that, light exposure at nighttime. So study has shown that you want to be covered up and dark at night because it's important for our brown adipose tissue. And this is regulated by our melatonin. So again, melatonin is only secreted when it's dark, and it helps us with sleep in a dark environment. So all of that artificial light exposure that we have, not good for our melatonin. And we need that melatonin because increasing that brown fat fat. The brown fat is what helps to keep us warm, and it turns our food into that active heat, which is what we want. So think of burning off fat while we're sleeping. We want more of that melatonin. Plus, not to mention, melatonin is a super antioxidant, and a lot of studies have looked at the connection between lack of melatonin and those big, like cancer and those big diseases out there. So really important that we have that proper melatonin. Tip number 2 is thyroid. So our thyroid is active when we're sleeping. If we're not sleeping, we are not getting the added bonus of this natural fat burning when we're sleeping of our thyroid gland. So again, what I mentioned earlier is making sure that you're decreasing that fluoride. So you want to change your toothpaste. If you are using fluoridated toothpaste, no bueno, not good. You want to stop using that. You want to use a natural toothpaste, and you can easily find it in the drugstore that says no fluoride, and also in your drinking water. So make sure your drinking water does not have fluoride, as well as increasing a little bit of healthy salt in your diet. So you want to make sure there's some iodine in your salt. So iodized salt, whether it's sea salt or Celtic salt, or make sure that there's some iodine in there, because that is important for your thyroid. Now there's also supplements that are great for the thyroid that have a bit of iodine. So we'll put that link. My team didn't know that I'm throwing that in there, but we'll put that link to that if you need to boost up your thyroid, especially for low thyroid. This is important that you are doing that to get that weight off and burn it while you're sleeping. That's important as well. Tip number 3 is to use coconut oil. So this is fantastic to be able to have coconut oil in your diet, and studies have shown that it actually increases your resting metabolic rate. So that's what we want. Even at rest, we want to make sure that we're a fat burning machine. So this helps, and to be able to have that coconut oil in the diet helps to keep you full. So this is something you can use in your last meal of the day. I often will start my first meal of the day with some MCTs from coconut oil, and that's important as well to make me feel full, so I don't necessarily want to and gravitate towards those carbs, which we know is not good for our leptin. Tip number 4 is to increase our protein. So a high protein breakfast is one of the best things you can do. This is something that I talked about in the leptin show, so that is important as well. Decrease your carbs is tip number 5. So yeah, you can't get away from it. We don't want to have too many carbohydrates, especially at bedtime. And tip number 6 is stop eating at least 3 hours before sleep, before bedtime, so that your insulin can drop down. Your melatonin will not be secreted unless you are dropping down your insulin. And tip number 7 is to get cold. So you want to increase your thermogenesis, your ability to burn up that fat, by getting cold before bedtime. So that could be the face dunk in the ice. Check out the previous video on that, which is important. But also getting cold. So it could be cold showers. It could be, I actually do ice packs now. I'm going to share that. That'll be a post as well. What I do in the evenings. My family, they don't even ask anymore. They know I do these wacky things, and I'm getting healthier, and that's what I want. And so the ice packs is important for me. So those were the tips. That was the bonus. And thank you for watching today. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you haven't yet left a comment today. I want to hear from you. Don't be shy. It's just writing a comment. I'm not asking for a video, but if you want to send me a video, that would be great as well. I love to hear from you, and remember that your comments might help to inspire somebody else to keep going, to get that restful night's sleep, to feel better. Maybe it's anxiety issues, as we had a question today as well. And also, if this video helped you to learn something new today, please give it a big thumbs up. I totally appreciate it. Make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell so you're always notified of the latest uploads. Be sure to share this video as well with your friends if you think that they may, they need that restful night's sleep. Someone that's struggling, please share this video as well. And I'll see you next time. Remember to always take care of your good health and to do it naturally. I'm Dr. Janine.